Hey everybody, welcome to the Herd Fit Podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset. All right, welcome back to the Herd Fit Podcast. I'm Coach David Syvertsen. I'm here with Dr. and Coach Sam Rhee. We are actually here with, is it official yet? Did you pass your test?
I did pass it.
Okay, so we am here with level 2 coach, Dr. Sam Rhee.
You can't fail that test.
Oh, really? Okay.
No.
Oh, really? Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
You just keep, it's like the judge's course. You just keep taking it over and over again.
Got it. Sweet. All right, so don't tell anybody that. All right. So Sam just took his level 2. He took it upon himself to sign up for register for the level 2 certification in CrossFit. There's level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. And I would say, I don't have the number. My random guess is about 25 to 27% are level 2. And I think there's only 1 to 2% of coaches that are level 3, level 4. And the level 2, basically level 1 certification is you have to have it to A, open up a gym, and also B, to start coaching CrossFit. And it's basically what is CrossFit. That's what level 1 is. You go over every single movement, you go over methodology, you go over a little bit of nutrition. Level 2 is much more intense, and it's really about how do you coach. You could make the argument that to coach CrossFit, you should get a level 2. I don't think that, but you could make that argument. And that is where you get really critiqued on how well you coach, how well you run a class. You talk about programming there. Sam, quick feedback or overview, and then we'll dive in a little bit more specifically. How was the L2?
In a word, it was excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was in Mineola, New York at CrossFit Garden City.
1 or 2 days?
It was 2 days. It's a Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 5.
And so it's a 9 to 5. So you are looking at 16 hours over the course of 2 days. Did you come home in between?
I drove home. It's like an hour and 15 minutes.
Okay. So you didn't like stay in a hotel or anything. No. So that is, the way these things run, how many people did you have that were there?
17
people. How many instructors?
3.
So they will tell you, they will pick how many instructors are there that work for CrossFit. This is the CrossFit seminar staff. They're the superstar coaches of the CrossFit world that teach these. And how many people attending for their L2 will dictate how many people are teaching. And that's a pretty standard size group, around 17 and 3 seminar coaches. What were your key takeaways on those 3 coaches? And did you see a huge separation between what you've seen at a CrossFit gym, people coaching, and those guys?
Huge separation, absolutely. These guys are the template. They are the coach's coach. They are the ones that espouse the most classic fundamental tenets of CrossFit. They are the model upon which everything else is based on.
They're the bar setters.
They are the standard setters.
Yeah. I mean, if you go to a CrossFit gym anywhere and you just find a coach, they might be terrible. They might be great. They might be in the middle, right? These guys, there's no question that they're top shelf.
Top shelf.
It's a very, very demanding group too. I've heard podcasts, Austin James, Joey Dill, good friend of ours, is going to be on here on the podcast at some point, where they get so much constructive criticism. They give and get so much of it. Savant's podcast with Dave Castro, they even talked about that culture that's within that group. They're called the Red Shirts. They criticize each other constructively nonstop. And that's part of one of the key takeaways that you probably had is Sam's a pretty good coach. He's been coaching for a few years, has a decent amount of experience, pretty demanding gym, not necessarily from me, but just it's a bar that has a high expectation that if you're a bad coach, you're going to get exposed here, in my opinion. All right. And I think that initial pressure when I took my L2 a couple years ago, that was like the first surprise to me. It was within like 15 minutes. I was like, oh boy, I'm going to get roasted here. How many situations, and what was maybe one of your more specific situations where you got a lot of constructive criticism, but at the time you felt like you were getting roasted?
They were nice. I know in the past they've been really brutal at these L2s, and I have to say that they are kind when they are roasting you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm not coming across as like roasted, like you're,
you suck.
Yeah, your football coach in high school who just like yelled at you for every little thing. When I say roasted, just like really showing you what you're doing wrong and telling you what you're doing wrong in the moment in front of other people.
Absolutely. So part of it is about evaluating your coaching. And one of the situations, which is pretty typical, and this was the second day, so I had time to prepare. they have the 9 fundamental movements, which you did learn in L1.
Yep.
You know, the shoulder press, push, jerk, deadlift, all those movements.
Yep.
The 9. You picked one, and you had to coach it to a small group, like 5 people. And you had already done this on an individual basis on day 1. So you have plenty of time to prepare and know what you're going to do. And they've already taught you a bunch of things.
Right.
So you think you know what you've learned some stuff, even if you didn't know anything before day 1.
And you're coaching people that know CrossFit pretty well.
They know CrossFit. These are your fellow classmates.
Yeah.
And I chose the simplest movement that I could think of, which was the strict press, the shoulder press, because I was like, I don't have to teach any push jerking or squatting,
hip extension.
nothing. It's just your arms, right? And I got destroyed. So my 3 coaches, the seminar staff, were Dennis Marshall and his spouse, Jennifer Hunter Marshall.
Yep.
Both of them own CrossFit Garden City. And then Larry Thomas, who's out of Boston. He owns 2 boxes up there. He ran with the CrossFit Reebok crew for a real long time.
Yep.
So, you know, Malioli and Hobart, those guys.
Know them well, yep.
Yeah. So I sit there and I'm coaching and I have my whole thing laid out and I do it and I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm showing everyone and up and doing the demo and all that. And he's like, about halfway through, maybe. He's like, okay.
I've heard enough.
Okay. And, you know, it's funny because the coach the day before on my feedback initially, review all the points of performance. And I got crushed because I did not do any points of performance at all on the strict press. I ran through it the night before. I was like, how many points of performance are there? You know, okay, lumbar curve, right?
Yep.
When you're standing. Heels down, obviously, on a strict press. You know, bar frontal plane, which is basically above your head, not forward or not back. Full range of motion. Active shoulders, right? And I did not realize how crap my teaching was, and not only that, evaluating and looking and finding faults.
Yeah, that's tough.
And for the simplest movement.
Yep.
And Larry just broke it all down for me, and I was like, "Did you check for this? Did you check for this? Did you check for this?"
Yeah.
It's like, "Nope, nope,
No.
nope." I thought. I mean, she's like, "Nope." Like
Yep. Being humbled in a good way.
Did you mention this? You mentioned this, but did you check for it? Nope. And so at that point, I was like, "Whoa."
Yep.
Like now I know what I don't know.
This is bringing back like nightmares. It's my level 2 a couple years ago.
So that was a definite teaching moment there.
Yeah. So now, like, reflect a little bit on this. Like, you now see the purpose from it because you're removed from the whole weekend. You're, you know, in the comfort of your own gym at the podcast table. In the moment, do you start to feel like, all right, I need to improve this for X, Y, and Z, or is it, all right, there's a little bit too much analysis. Like, I'm fine the way I do it.
The first thing is that it's like everything else. You have to be good at it in order to throw away the things that you're not good at. Right. So, you know, it's like every other, I'm trying to analogize it to something else, but if you're a painter, if you look at Jackson Pollock and it just looks like fucking paint thrown up on the wall, and you think you can do it, well, you know, maybe there's a specific order in which you do, like you have to know what you're doing in order to make it like, to know that maybe that's not
to be professional. Yeah.
And so do you need to coach exactly the way the seminar staff coach? No.
Right.
Like there are subtleties in which they are pointing out in order that you don't necessarily need to point out. On the other hand, if you can't even triage what it is that you're looking for,
and if you don't look for it,
and if you're not looking for it and identifying and be like, okay, that's not important, but the hip extension's more important,
right?
Like then what's the point? You're missing all of it.
Yep.
So no, you don't have to coach exactly the way you do, but you need to know what you're seeing and then deciding what it is that you're going to coach.
Yeah, and that's a great way of putting it. And that's where there's, I think, experience of a coach means so much. And I do think like in time, because again, there's so many movements and so many different people and situations and workouts in CrossFit that the experience that accrues over the years, it really does mean something. But only if that coach has, you know, like if you're a CrossFit coach for 6-7 years and you're not looking for stuff, you're not really thinking critically and you're not being humble about the fact that like you just don't know it all, that really can impede your progress as a coach. But if you are humble about it and you can take constructive criticism and you do look for all these things and you are trying to enrich, you know, your own understanding of CrossFit methodology and movement and cues and people, psychology, right? You really can become like a better and better and better coach over time.
It's about the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Most everything that you break down in life, if you do the common uncommonly well, right?
Virtuosity.
Virtuosity. If you don't even know what the points of, like, if I don't even know the points of performance for something like that, how can I even say it's important or not important in a particular athlete?
Yep.
You know, if I'm not knowing that their heels need to be down and maybe on that strict press they're pushing up with it, or they're not keeping their midline stabilized, then how do I even know what it is that I'm looking for?
Yeah. And how can you help?
And how can I help? And the other thing is that there are some basic teaching principles. I mean, if you're a really good teacher, you probably know some of the things that they teach. It's the fundamental stuff. Like half the class when we first started in small group in there, we would just be like, okay, do a push jerk, and we wouldn't actually show what a push jerk is.
Right.
Or we wouldn't actually say, okay, we're learning push jerk today.
Yeah.
You know, all right, do the push jerk and let's take a look at it. Like, you know, cueing people, just the simple stuff to guide people. And it's the most fundamental things.
I know. Yeah.
And I could only think as we were going through all this, the seminar staff must be like, we are teaching idiots every weekend. These guys are so stupid.
I give them credit. I've always felt like that's got to be a really hard thing to do. I mean, apparently, yes, hard, but you know, they're so passionate about it, but they do the same thing every weekend.
And the same dumb mistakes are being made every weekend. We're not reading the manuals. We're not learning the fundamentals. We're not incorporating this stuff.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they're not sitting there being like, yo, dumbass, read what you're supposed to learn. Is
keep it fresh.
Right. And the fact that they're enthusiastic and they're giving us the feedback over and over and over and over again, you know, I really am very impressed. And then the other thing is, and then you start to see the stuff that they see that is critical. For example, and this is on me as an athlete, and then I'm starting to see it in others, is the hip extension. So I know you see it in me, and you've said it to me a million times. I heard you as they were telling me in terms of
fully extending
the hips.
Don't start to extend the hips and then go try to catch the bar.
Right, and then catch the bar. Don't start with the arms before I'm fully up.
Yeah.
And I wasn't looking for it in my athletes, and I wasn't doing it in my movements.
Yeah.
And the key with them is that even on really fast athletes, they can see it. And they have little cues and tips that they see, but it's also repetition and looking for it. For example, one of the tips they gave me is that when you see someone squat set up on the bar, there's a triangle where their arm, leg, and body is, right? When they're squat.
Got it.
And then when they stand up, that triangle disappears. But if they start pulling with their arms before they're fully extended, you'll still see that space in between.
Got it.
Their
that's
body.
interesting. Yeah.
So they're like, wait for that. You got to see if that triangle disappears before they start pulling. And moving their arms. And I said, oh, well, that helps. Stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a nice objective thing to look for.
Right. They're like, look for the triangle.
Because it can be hard to coach sometimes and look for hip extension because it's so fast.
It's so fast.
It's a millisecond.
It's a millisecond.
So if you can see something objective, hey, I see a triangle, I don't, it could cut that out a little bit.
Right. And so these guys have more knowledge in their pinky than I do in my, and I know it would take years and years, but that's the good thing about an L2 is there are a couple things I learned that, and this was actually kind of bad for my first Wednesday class when I started. One of the things that they said is, and one of the feedback is like, you know, you just say good job. Like, what the F does good job mean to an athlete? Good job. If you're going to give either correction or praise, make it specific.
Yeah.
And so
I remember that.
The Wednesday, it wasn't really technically hard. It was like burpees and a floor press.
Yeah.
And then
hollow rock.
And double on hollow rocks and double on.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to give compliments about floor press, and I'm like, good full extension on the plate.
Yeah.
Way to touch your chest and thighs on the burpees to the ground.
Yeah.
I felt like an idiot saying it.
Yeah.
But I wanted to practice it anyway.
No, I mean, and honestly, I do think that's going to mean more on a simple workout like that to someone that just started. You know, like we have a lot of new people right now. But you have this Wednesday, you have running, kettlebells, and burpees too. Like that's no. Well, this is going to air in a few weeks, so never mind.
But you know, it's like way to keep that core like tight on the hollow rocks. Like, but you know what? I don't care if I sound stupid. I'm just going to keep practicing it.
Yeah, no, it's a good skill to practice, and I do remember that because I do that all the time. I'm notorious for that. It's one of my biggest weaknesses. And is it a bad thing? I don't think so, but it is a shortcoming. Like, nice work, awesome, good work. Oh, that looked great. That doesn't help them other than it just makes someone feel good.
Right.
is it physically, technically going to help them? That's what I want to ask you next, but keep going.
Yeah. So the other thing is my verbal cueing needed to be better. Sometimes I'm super wordy when I try to help someone.
Same.
And they're just like, chest up, knees forward, hips up. The other thing is, and I didn't do this, but I saw another classmate do it, is do the same cue over and over again. If it's not working, saying, keep your knees back. No. Keep your knees back.
Yeah.
Back.
Yeah.
No, back. And then they're like, no, that's not helping.
It's not working.
It's not working. Figure out something else to do.
Coaches have to find different ways to say the same thing.
So it's, this is obvious stuff. It's not rocket science.
Right.
But it is stuff that you forget about when you're in the middle of it.
Yep. Now, a lot of this critiquing and coaching and education, it's very technical. How do you become a better technical coach when cues and all that and what you're looking for? Do they go into at all the emotions of a human being and the subjective part of coaching, like relationship building, trust building, trying to play to someone's attitude and self-esteem, and when you have a room full of people that are all over the place with their confidence levels, do they touch on that at all?
They do. One of the things that they did do is talk about enhancing the group experience. One of the things they did was we did a workout, and one of the seminar staff took us through the whole workout. They explained what their lesson plan was, how they were going to do it, and then they ran us through it. And the workout itself, not that it really mattered, was 3 rounds, 30 dumbbell snatches, 20 toes to bar, 15 burpees over dumbbell. Okay. And so Larry Thomas,
good workout.
Yeah, it was tough.
Kind of tough.
Yeah. And so they do the things that you do. They talk about the programming a little bit.
Yep.
I mean, before the actual thing. And they said, if you are handed this programming as a coach, you should estimate how long this is going to take, which is what all athletes really should do, right?
Yep.
It's like, okay, so how long is this going to be? Somewhere between 9 minutes for your best athletes, 13 minutes for your slow athletes.
Yep.
So now you know how much time you can allocate. So there's lesson planning involved. And so they talk about all of that.
Yeah.
Then they talk about the general warm-up and then the specific warm-up.
Yep.
They don't stretch, actually, which I found interesting. And then they go through the workout. And afterwards, they asked us questions. And one of the questions was, how many people got specific cues or feedback from Larry? Everyone. And not only that, but multiple. Like they said, you should shoot for somewhere up to about 5, they call it touches, which basically contacts.
Verbal or mostly verbal contact.
With each athlete. And we had 17 people in class, and he was masterful at sometimes it was something really little or simple.
Yeah.
But
both heads touch. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Now, when they're talking to you, was he always giving you something that you're doing wrong with your movement, or was it sometimes a praise, a mix?
It was a combination. So one of the things was my setup on my dumbbell snatches, like how my static start stance.
Yep.
And he actually remembered from my squat cleans before, like my hips weren't positioned high enough so that my knees could come back enough.
Yeah.
And he remembered that. He's like, oh, you're doing that now. Good job.
Yeah. All right, cool.
So that was cool.
That's cool.
The other thing is they talk about a coach's personality.
Yeah.
Right. So amplifying yourself, being the big version of you.
Yep.
And this was a funny one, I thought. They said, you should be the person that your dog thinks you are.
That's awesome.
And I was like,
that's
okay.
pretty cool.
Yeah, I was like, all right, that helps sort of solidify what kind of personality I am.
Now, is that more specifically? Is that more like your alpha, or you're like the playful? You're kind of like the mix of what exactly would that mean to someone?
I don't know.
What did it mean to you? How did you see yourself when you were like, all right, what would my dog think of me?
It's basically the more upbeat, happier
playful
version of me.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not gonna sit there and yell at my dog. I'm not gonna frown at my dog. I'm gonna be like, hey.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
Yeah.
So
cuddly, but also demanding. Yeah,
right. That version of me. And then they also basically said, which I thought we do a good job here at Bison, and they did mention care and empathy.
Yep.
And service. You don't the knowledge and you could have the most knowledge and the most teaching skills available to you as a coach, but if you don't care, if you don't have a passion for service, forget it.
Yeah.
And they emphasized that, and that resonated strongly because that gives me hope. Because listen, I may not have the most knowledge, and even within Bison, like it also gave me a new perspective with the coaches at Bison.
Got it.
And I told Delator this, and honestly, it runs the closest to seminar staff model coaching.
Completely agree.
Than anyone else here.
Completely agree.
And that is great.
Yep.
And before I was like, he is picking on little things or this and that. And I was like, oh, now I know why he does those things.
Yeah.
And those are good things to do.
Yeah.
And
Mike he's a CrossFit truther. Not in the way that we talked about in this Castro Savant conversation. He's so old school in such a good way. I actually want to say he interned on seminar staff at some point. I think
it reflects. So what was your thought, and but it's also hard to incorporate L2 stuff into your own daily flow, like unique flow.
Yeah, and like that's what that you have to.
So what did you do when you did that?
I mean, it did. I remember mine very well. I think it was 2019 that I did mine.
And where was it?
New York City. I forget the name of the gym. Hell's Kitchen, CrossFit Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
And Joey Dill.
Oh, he was your staff?
Was one of the staff members. I actually stayed in the hotel with them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, in the city.
Did they party that time?
They went out, but they wait. Did I? Yeah, we stayed with them. But I think it wasn't like a big party. I think it was like a dinner and a beer kind of thing. So, and it's funny. I remember what the workout they did. Yeah. It was strict. I think it was muscle ups and shoulder press. It was cool. Yeah. Ascending weights. And I think it was strict muscle ups because him and James Hobart just banged them out. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that next time. But anyway, my biggest takeaway from that L2 and what I tried to implement into the gym as a coach, not as a programmer, we can talk about the programming talk as well, was you really do need to find different ways to say the same thing to different people. And you need to have this blend of, you need to be able to read people very well to see if they're taking in what you're saying. And you should always take the responsibility on yourself that if they're not adjusting what you're telling them to adjust, you can't always say, oh, well, they're idiots. They're not listening to me. It might be because you're not delivering it the right way. And like, that's one of the bigger things. I mean, I consider myself a humble person, but I got humbled coaching because I didn't go in there cocky at all. But I went in there being like, I know how to do this. I know how to do this, blah, blah, blah. We're good. Let's skip over this and get to the programming talk, right? Mm-hmm. And it really did show me that, hey, the people that you're teaching your push, my movement was the push press, was like, they all know it. And you're not doing a good job correcting it. And that was like the eye-opening situation to me was, I need to find different ways to say the same thing rather than just saying, hey, maybe another coach can help them when they go to that class. And that was one of my biggest key takeaways. And I've tried to implement that into my coaching, that if there's something I'm trying to fix movement-wise with someone and it's not clicking, I have backup option number 2, backup option number 3, instead of just saying, all right, well, they're not listening today. And that's one thing I've tried to implement into my coaching is a lot. I also started changing my warm-ups a little bit. After that, I remember we didn't stretch as well. We can talk about that a little bit. I still like to stretch. I like to stretch personally before I work out. I know a lot of people do too. But I did make my warm-ups more movement after my L2. That was when my warm-ups changed after I went there, and just understanding why they do certain things, getting people into movement patterns rather than just stretching patterns. I do think there's a value in both. I've always thought that. And what are your thoughts on that in regard to how they warmed you up? Because again, for the people that don't know, you learn a lot. Most of it's sitting and listening, but they do get you up and move a few times. And there are workouts that you do both days, and they bring you through this whole circuit of warm up, like you said. Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts on that whole process?
I think we do generally a good job at Bison in terms of our warm-up. I think the things that they want us to keep in mind as coaches is that your specific warm-ups can also be your scaled options, which we do all the time, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
Knee raises for toes to bar,
yep.
Stuff like that. You know, practice the movement in your warm-up, the kipping.
Knock 2 birds out with 1 stone.
Right.
Yeah.
And we do a great job with that. The stretching. So the stretching, they don't do, and someone else asked about that. They say, can you incorporate stretching in your WOD or your warm-up? And they say you can if you want, if you allocate time.
Yeah.
And for me,
you have to map that out.
Right. And for me personally, I feel like we should always have stretching. I love stretching in it. Mm-hmm. It's weird not to have stretching.
And I always say this about stretching. It's not only about that workout. Like, I just think stretching should be part of your daily exercise regimen. You know, like I tell my classes that sometimes. Like, guys, like, this stretch, hey, just so you know, like, it might help you today, it might not, but that's not the reason why we're stretching. It's a reason. You know, you should just always be stretching.
Right.
You know,
I think in terms of that part of it, I think it seemed very apropos to what we were doing at Bison.
Okay. Now, do you see these coaches, like, I look up to these redshirt coaches, right? And like, I really tried to take in, like, I had Keith Wettenstein. I had him for my level 1 too, which is cool. Just seeing him 5 years later, and he's a level 4 now guy I just saw on Facebook that, I try to take some of what they do and try to like let it impact my coaching a little bit. Like, again, being humble and like just saying like, hey, you don't know everything, try to fix things. Did you feel like that they were overly technical and not enough personable? Like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing?
To the extent that they got to know us for those 2 days, they were personable enough. Okay. I think everyone has their own. I think the big takeaway is everyone has their own coaching style.
Yeah,
and
it's okay to have a different one.
Totally different.
Yeah,
like Dennis is a little drier. Yeah, maybe a little more sarcastic.
Yeah,
funny.
Yeah,
Jen is just really charismatic,
rock star.
Oh my god, she's so charismatic.
Ash had her for level 1. She goes, she's beautiful.
Yeah, she just there's
huge smile.
Yeah, just a magnetism. Like the things and the she says is just so funny, and just there's a presence about her.
Yeah, I agreed.
And Larry's just really low key. I think
chill.
Yeah, very chill, very knowledgeable, but approachable. He's a very approachable kind of guy.
I would love to know how they put the teams together. Like, do they really try to mix and match like personalities and body types and athletic backgrounds? Like, I would love to see if that's part of their process of putting teams together.
I don't know. I felt like they were personable. They always work out during lunch.
Yep.
And
did you get to watch them?
I did.
Yeah.
And one was like a row dumbbell workout, like lunges, push press, cleans. And another one was like a run and thruster workout.
Yeah.
Not super long.
Now, how fit are they, would you say?
All of them are extremely fit.
Yeah. That is a fit group, actually.
Yeah. Dennis actually made the games in the Masters division a couple years ago. Jen is extremely, like, if you've ever seen her back.
She's sculpted.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. She's one of those people, like, muscles on muscles. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, amazing.
Yep.
And Larry's just like, he doesn't have muscles bulging, but performance-wise,
move
really well.
Yeah, because I've been to seminars before. I think when I watch them work out, and they're not all like fire breathers, like huge, strong, do everything, but they move well. And like, I love seeing people that practice what they preach. That always means a lot to me.
They have to. I feel like they could teach this with their eyes closed.
Right.
If you put them underwater upside down, they could still teach it.
Yeah.
And write, like, no cues, no memory aids. Everything is written and coached and done. Literally, they could be half drunk and do it. I don't know. Maybe in the past they might have even.
Yeah, it's possible.
Like, I've heard stories of the old days, not now.
Yep.
And in order for them to really do it, they have to believe it.
Yeah.
I will say the one thing probably that it's funny because they go off of a manual that's really old.
Yep.
It's like 10 years old, or I don't know, 2013, 15, 16. And there's so much in there that I'm going to keep looking at. And they say that, like, you pull out the fundamentals until I know all the points of performance for a push press, for a, whatever. Like, and if I can rattle it off, at least at that point, I have a starting place.
Yeah.
But the nutrition part of it was the programming was not that big. They basically just mention enough for you as a coach to be able to recognize, are these movements complementary? Are they different? Yes, variant, right. Yeah. Heavy volume, that sort of stuff. Like, listening to you over the years, I feel like I've gleaned at least as much, if not more, from than what I read in this thing.
Right.
Hearing you talk about it. But then the second part with the nutrition was, it was more psychology. It wasn't really espousing Greg Glassman's, meat, vegetables,
zone diet, right?
Or little sugar, all that sort of stuff. It was really, how do you get someone to change their behavior?
Okay.
And
what are your thoughts on that?
It was an intro.
Okay.
And obviously, if you really care about trying to change someone's behavior, you can go down that rabbit hole. Very, good things like, have them have little victories, mastery, right? Over little steps. And then that helps them with the big steps.
Right.
Give them verbal encouragement, give them other, have models like other people in the gym who maybe lost 60 pounds too, and use
connect them.
Yeah, connect them. And there's a lot of jargon, which I always hate because I've been in medicine and there's so much effing jargon, and they always like to use certain terms.
Yeah.
And they're not any different in the CrossFit manual. Like, if you want to say self-efficacy, fine, say self-efficacy, or you could just use it like a better vocabulary.
So do you think there's some margin there that could be had, just like improve the nutrition component of the weekend? Nutrition is like such a deep and diverse, multiple direction topic.
You know,
or do you think they should exclude it?
No, I mean, it's part of the manual, and
Right.
they're never not going to include it.
Yeah.
I think Jen's anecdotes were very helpful because she actually had a huge life as a trainer outside of CrossFit,
Right.
you know, helping people. And now they have a dedicated nutrition coach at CrossFit Garden City.
Okay.
So they don't specifically do huge nutrition challenges and all that stuff.
Got it.
I feel like they could probably have dropped that part of it, but
Okay.
they never will just because it's part of the L2.
Yeah. It's hard. I would never get to a point where you ignore it. You know, I thought I walked away. That was my one. Someone asked me for a constructive criticism of it, and I just thought there should be more time put on it. I don't have the solution for that, but I just think there should be maybe an hour and a half designated to the nutrition.
But what are they going to say?
That's the thing, that who's your clientele? The people that the Sam Rhees at that thing. There's so many different levels of understanding. You are a very well educated man. There's a lot that is you always have this information in your head because you have such an extensive background.
Well, no, honestly, my nutrition information came from all the freaking challenges. No,
okay.
Our Larong stuff and experimenting with paleo and
Anecdotal
macros.
stuff, yeah.
No, the stuff that I learned on myself over the years at Bison taught me a lot about personal experience with nutrition.
Okay.
But that doesn't necessarily apply to
everyone else in the room.
The science of nutrition. And, listen, the science of nutrition is pretty complicated.
It is.
So I don't know what they could deal with in an hour that would be helpful for me.
Or I wonder if they would even bring back, I think they had it for a very short amount of time, an actual nutrition seminar. They have all these different seminars.
Oh, they do. I think that's one of the courses you can take.
You can take a nutrition seminar online?
I don't know. They have so many courses online.
Yeah.
I actually signed up for a couple before the L2, Spot the Flaw, Fundamentals, and I did some of it. I'm going to go back and look at more of it. There's a ton of stuff online.
Yeah.
Old journal stuff mostly.
Yeah.
That is worthwhile.
The clientele that was with you, so the other coaches that were taking the L2, what was the general feel for who they were? Were they other coaches, affiliate owners, high-level athletes that were just trying to understand a little bit more? Who are they? And did you have, in the nicest way possible, did you have a good feeling that they understood what they were doing?
Did they have a good understanding of what they felt like they were doing? I would say in general, yes. I would say everyone who came got something positive away from it.
Okay.
There was a large range of different people. So there was a Granite Games competitor, Justin Hong, who was from Boston.
Cool.
So one of our WODs was 5x3 squat cleans.
Yeah, 5x3 squat clean.
Yeah, so his last round of 3 squat cleans, 305 touch and go.
Wow, touch and go.
Yeah.
Wow, impressive.
Pretty fucking good.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
And then we had relatively new affiliate owners. There was a guy down in Staten Island. Great guy Kyle is, trying to get his whole crew together.
Yep.
And then there were just some other affiliate owners, and then just coaches, a lot of coaches, all varying levels of skill and ability. I would say most of them were actually pretty good. There was no one that was awful.
Okay.
I asked Larry, have you had really? He's like, yeah, we've had some.
So that was what I wanted to bring it up. I had a couple people that were in my group that were in that category, awful, and one of them was getting to an argument with James Hobart about programming and what stimulus actually means, and that's I do get discouraged sometimes, and that there are people out there coaching and owning gyms that think Fran should take 12 minutes because it's RX. And that's where I don't know if CrossFit can do this, where it is a little bit harder to, or you do a bigger separation between trying to really find the cream of the crop gyms and coaches. You can, if you have some money and you'll get your L1, you could open up a gym. And CrossFit has always said cream will rise to the top.
Yes.
So if you are a bad coach, it's eventually, there are good gyms now pretty much everywhere. And if you run a bad gym, it's eventually going to crumble or close. And there's a lot of reasons you can have a bad gym. And one of them, my biggest thing is coaching. I think the coaching is going to run the ship. So I just wanted to get your feedback on that. Were there anyone there? And do you think the L2 teaches enough or is challenging enough? Or could there be another angle to this to get people to become a better coach before they go out and coach the public?
Well, the first thing is that you're absolutely right. There's such a wide variety of quality gyms and staff out there for CrossFit, but that's by design and by intent. the barrier of entry is very, very low. You don't even need an L2. You can have an L1, which honestly, how many people with just an L1 are fully, like, would you trust your kid to go train with at a CrossFit gym?
Like 1 or 2%.
Yeah, like very few.
Yeah.
But eventually, like you said, the good ones survive and the bad ones die, and sooner or later you'll have really good ones just by sheer force of elimination.
Do you think that there's something else that should be added to the L2 or a requirement to be considered an L2 coach that someone should have before they can go call themselves an L2 coach?
Right. If they had a real test that I would have failed, the stakes would have been higher.
Yeah.
And I would have tried a lot harder probably.
Yep. Okay.
When they told us that first morning, the first hour, that, we're going to go through all of this, you will take an online assessment course at the end, but you can't fail it.
Yeah.
And we're just here to make you a better coach.
Just for the record, my L2, we didn't have to take a test at all. It was just go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so with that, I didn't study as hard as I could have.
Right.
I didn't prepare as well as I could have. And I probably should have, because I was paying $1,000 and it was 2 days of my life.
Yep.
That being said, I'm sort of lazy sometimes, and who wants to sit there and read this thing and cover it when
if you don't have to.
Right. When they're going to teach it to you, supposedly.
That's just been a conversation I've had with other coaches from other gyms is, they think that it should be a little bit harder to become or uphold your status as a coach. And like, I agree and disagree. Like, I don't think it's tough. I just like talking about it. I like hearing other people's thoughts on it.
Well, the thing is just taking this alone did not suddenly make me an awesome coach.
Yeah. If you're a good test taker,
right. And the other thing is that what it did was it jump-started me. So for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be looking at the points that I didn't know, layer them in constantly, and constantly think about what I did.
I remember exactly telling Ashley this once my L2 was over. I was on the phone with her saying, hey, we're leaving the city, I'll be home in an hour. And I remember something like, I can't wait to coach this week. Like, it just kind of it motivated me and opened my eyes a little bit to be like, wow, there's so much I can do to become a better coach.
Right. And I'm going to continue to become a better coach just because I will do that. I'm going to go back and look at this.
And this is why you did it. Right. You did become a coach. Like, it's not like you're going to go home and put Sam Rhee, CrossFit L2 coach on your Instagram. That's not why you do it. It's not a status thing. Like, you did it for self-improvement. I think everyone should know that.
Yeah. I know I'm not the best coach. I might be the 10th or 12th best coach at our gym. And so for me to... How many coaches do we have?
12 now.
Okay, so I might be the 12th best coach at our gym. Seriously.
Well, Nick starts Thursday night as a real CrossFit coach this Thursday night, 6:15, 7:15. So just because he's new, he's 12th. All right. So maybe you're 11.
No, I can't. Not just because of seniority. I actually want to be. So for me, it was about how can I be a better coach? Mm-hmm. And this is helping me continue that process. I'm a better coach before I took the L2 than I was a year ago.
Cool.
I will now accelerate that process, I hope, and continue to become better.
Yeah.
I will never be as good as some of these coaches that I've seen, just because that's their job, that's their life, and they some of them, like Jen, just have a talent for it.
Yeah, I agree.
But I can try to be the best coach that I can be. And what's exciting to me is that I want to see my athletes get better.
Yeah.
Like if I spend an hour with them, I should be able to make them better in a more efficient way.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things I did take away is I can't be everyone's friend.
Yep.
And I know I might piss some people off.
Yep.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's definitely okay.
I might make a bunch of mistakes and not exactly execute this to form. Like they say, emphasize the points of performance, and I might be yelling at someone for something so stupid because I'm not even really seeing the forest for the trees.
Remember the word you told me?
What?
It said be relentless with it?
Yes.
Like just relentless with how hard you're trying to coach someone, even if it looks like you're trying to, even from the outside or the athlete's like, yo, stop telling me to squat lower. Like,
right.
No, dude, squat deeper, bro. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, if I care about that athlete and I want them to do better, if I'm not their best friend at the end of the class, I'm okay with that.
Yep. I've always told our coaches that we have all their backs with this stuff. If you are really coaching someone hard and they get pissed off to the point that they leave the gym, because you're just coaching them to the point like, hey, you got to squat deeper. Hey, you got to hit standards unless they're injured, which most cases they're not, and they don't do it and they get pissed off, and then that's on them. I support our coaches in that. I
don't think I will ever get to that point, but I do really want to focus on making athletes better. But you know what? They also mentioned about the group experience and really getting to know your athletes. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the one thing that we do well at Bison when I see the coaches is they know their athletes.
Yeah.
You particularly know every athlete. But even I'll take a Chris DeFaro class every once in a while, and he remembers me. He knows what I'm doing.
Yep.
You know,
I agree.
Same with Ash. Like these guys.
The conversations our coaches have with each other about the athletes in the gym, it's amazing. Like if you really sit back and watch, like we have. I think to be a good coach, you have to have that kind of like visual memory with like how people move and also have the personable side to understand how they act. I think our coaches do that really well here.
I ask you all the time, hey, you know, this guy or that girl, like, you know, this woman, like, have you seen that? And you're like, yeah, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yep.
You snap your finger, it's right there. Yeah.
Right. So it did a couple of things. It made me show myself how to become a better coach. It also showed me actually how good our coaches are.
Okay.
I am very, very, very impressed with all our coaches. And it also lets me look at all the coaching that I see at our gym and assess it and take away points from them in a framework that now I have.
Yeah.
And cool. It, like you said, it makes me excited to be coaching.
Yeah, that's awesome. Last question. Do you recommend this course for all CrossFit coaches? All CrossFit coaches get the L1. Do you think all of them should get, just your opinion, I'm not telling you asking you to tell people what to do. Do you think all CrossFit coaches should get their L2?
My short answer would be yes.
Okay. Leave it at that. Let them think about it.
How many of our coaches have the L2?
I think 5.
Okay.
Yep.
I mean, listen, the long answer is way more nuanced because there's so many factors involved.
No, there's so many factors.
And I will never tell anyone that they're not like we have L1 certified coaches that are awesome coaches.
Outstanding coaches.
Outstanding.
Top shelf.
Yes.
Yep.
And so
it's not even about them becoming a better coach. You know, like I think the coaches that do have an L1, both in this gym and other gyms that I know that don't have the L2, they're awesome coaches. They're always going to be awesome coaches. And if that you want to end the conversation there, end the conversation there. For their own good, just for their own sake.
Yes.
I think the L2 would help them all out.
Everyone.
Yep.
Everyone.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Sam. See you guys next time.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.